Good morning, dear Dharma friends. Hello, Trina. Are you still in Chicago?
Hello, Robert and everyone. Yes, I am. I'll be here till the probably end of May or
Ah,
so.
that's a long
But
haul, huh?
it has been, it's been very productive and fruitful. And
Good.
I miss you and I miss everyone.
Well, before long, we'll get to be in the building. Before too long.
Yay! Oh my gosh, so exciting.
Yeah. I'll give a little brief update on our adventures with the city permit department. The, the nightmare stories are true. So, hello everyone. I'm Robert Beatty. I'm coming to you from Portland, Oregon. This is a broadcast of the Portland Insight Meditation Community. PortlandInsight.org on the web. RobertBeatty.com on the web. If you're joining us from on YouTube or Facebook at this moment, you could go to RobertBeatty.com and get the link to come and be with us more interactively here on Zoom. Speaking of interactively, I think I'll share this piece now, which is that it's come to my attention rather painfully, I would say, in the last 4 days that I have given the impression to some people of not caring or not responding to their comments in the chat. And I never follow the chat. And I got feedback of at least one person who was quite hurt that repeated comments were not responded to. And then as we talked about it among the teachers, I learned that the groups of this kind never have the chat on. It's very rare anywhere. They come on briefly. So as of now, there's no chat. And it'll be just boring me. Or maybe we'll figure out how to. I know how to do it, but and it's not that I don't want to know what's happening, but I don't want to lose track to not know. So, and if you have thoughts about that, send it to me. Email robert@robertbeatty.com because we're still trying to find our way with this ridiculous medium, and so that's that. So, I spent 3 hours yesterday morning with Frank Ostaseski. Very powerful. If you've not read his book, The 5 Invitations, I'd put it right at the top of your list. Very helpful. Using death to help us be more alive and more conscious of living and the preciousness of life. Speaking of that, on Friday morning, I went to Vancouver, Washington, and spent about almost 2 hours with my old friend and mentor, Don Nickerson. He's 95. He was my first therapist. I was a totally insane 26-year-old or 27-year-old. I've been meditating for several years, but I was very nutty. And he helped contain me as I looked into some of the horrors of childhood and unskillful behaviors. And it was he who said, Ruth Dennison had told me to be teaching. And it was he who said, you should start a private practice where you teach people how to meditate. And that was the start of I rented a little office the size of a closet in a building that he had bought, and he gathered together. Some of you may recognize these names. Julie Goodnestad was one of my colleagues, and Ray Siderius. Julie, who's one of probably the better known yoga teachers in the world, physical therapist and yoga teacher. She's traveled all over the world teaching physical therapists about yoga. Ray Siderius, dear friend, who the founder of the Oregon School of Massage, he made massage legal. He got massage licensed in Oregon. And Ruth Satyanarayan was with us. It was a seedbed that Don nurtured us into blossoming. It was quite beautiful. Don's also a poet, and that's why I'm speaking of that this morning. Each time I go see him, I bring a poem of mine. I better, or I'll be in trouble. And he shares a poem of his. And I'm going to share his poem from Friday. He's a man of 95 years old. His mind is going. He's on the brink. Here's the poem. Here, not here. Here, not here. Let's remind ourselves of the refuges. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the way of understanding and love. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. Well, I guess the drop D tuning isn't quite ready for prime time. But the Dharma is, I take refuge in being awake. What else is there? What else is there? I take refuge in the Dharma, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, anicca, dukkha, anatta. The aggregates of clinging, the precepts. This moment, what's experienced in this moment. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the repository of the teachings down through time. Teacher to student, over 120 to 150 generations. Since the big breakthrough, I believe the greatest discovery that ever occurred for human beings. An ordinary human being, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. He got it. He was a persistent seeker. Not a superhuman being, not someone who came from another planet, or he was just like us. And he was confronted by birth, sickness, old age, decay, and death. And he didn't stop till he found out how to be free. So let's sit. Let's come to comfortable uprightness. Yesterday I experienced a fine vocabulary for sitting. It comes from Roshi Joan Halifax. And there's more to it than I'll share with you, but this is part of it that touched me. From the sacrum, which rests in the chair, presses against the chair. There extends upwards a pile of vertebrae. Pretty big at the bottom, very tiny at the top. They're hollow. The spinal cord, protected, connecting from the brain to the sacrum. Branches of the spinal cord going out to all parts of the body. And we practice having a strong back. We are strong to tolerate and survive the vicissitudes of life. Praise and blame, gain and loss, fame, disrepute, happy, sad, healthy, sick, confident, frightened. With our practice, with the refuges, we become stable, strong back. And equally important, soft belly, soft chest, soft front. We are extraordinarily vulnerable. Soft belly. We have no protection in the front, really. And we come through life and our losses and challenges, sicknesses, our utter vulnerability to death at any moment. Dare we be fully alive? Are you willing to feel what your life really is? To touch the awesome beauty of human life and the awesome, awful anguish of human life. Strong back, soft belly. Since that first moment after your birth, when the umbilical cord was clamped and cut, this body has been breathing. Even if you're one of those rare people who survived a profound heart surgery where you were on a heart-lung machine, something breathed for you for a little while. And so the breath here in the soft belly provides a rather perfect home base. It's like the metronome in music. It's there. Breathing in, breathing out. interest the mind in this in-breathing and out-breathing. Of course, there are also thoughts. Let's really not make enemies of the thoughts. We can fill ourselves with so much self and tension if we go to war with the thoughts. Instead, I take refuge in the Buddha, in being awake. Notice how thoughts arise, how they decline and disappear. The refuge in the Buddha is a willingness to be profoundly awake to everything that occurs. We can notice how one thought leads to another thought. How when the mind is focused on breathing, there's a calmness, concentration. Mindfulness can notice the 5 hindrances, where there's a wanting, a desiring, or a wanting not, a disliking or aversion. Can notice restlessness, agitation, and worry, or sleepy dullness. It can notice doubt, despair, dispiritedness, or any of the emotions. With this strong back, soft belly, soft front, we learn to withstand and be present for. The beautiful sunny days of life, and the tornadoes and hurricanes and earthquakes. We delight in the meetings and grieve fully the partings. We come into the present moment, one breath at a time, one thought at a time. Recognizing that everything is in flux. the wandering mind, the discursive mind, really has a life of its own, doesn't it? It has a mind of its own. How curious can you become about the thoughts that arise? Not the content, but the fact of thoughts.
online yesterday with Frank Ostaseski also, and was very impressed with that guided meditation that he did. Using the rhythm of strong back, soft belly uh, in a seated position as two objects of attention in a rhythm, just saying to yourself, strong back, soft belly. We can do the same thing standing up. It's not just the strong back, but it's the feet in touch with the earth beneath us, and the strength of the large bones in the legs attached to the pelvis and the hips, and then the spine, and going up into the shoulders. The strong back goes from the back of the bottom of the legs through the back, all the way up to the supporting muscles for the skull. So standing and appreciating that at the same time, there's this strength up the back and this softness in the front. And when we're sitting and we're trying to develop subtle concentration, then just those two words or two phrases is all we need. Strong back, soft belly. But with Qigong, we want to engage the body the way it's ordinarily engaged in life. And so the strong back can lift the arms up and spread the hands apart. And the soft belly can collapse and totally fold in and breathe in and breathe out with this strong back and the soft belly. Just bringing the attention to the strength that opens this gesture and the release and the surrender in the soft belly when we exhale. Feeling that all through the front of the body, the front of the torso. Strong back, soft belly. Simple rhythm, but so many sensations. One more time. Then let the arms drift down. Pause. Feel the life in the whole body, standing here. Scanning through the bottoms of the feet, the ankles, the lower legs, the upper legs, pelvic region and the hips, the soft belly, and then go around and back. There's actually a Qigong gesture that we could do. Bring our hands together in front of the belt, or in front of the belly, and then go and then move around and back. And then come and touch the front of the belly and stay in touch with the hips, and then touch the fingers together in the back and just make a ring around that central area. And the touch of our fingers on the ring around the center here, the touch brings our attention there. And then we can relax the hands. And now we have a muscle memory of that ring. And we can bring the attention to that same ring without the touch. And we can move the weight to one side and to the other, and by engaging with a memory of moving the weight side by side, the nervous system immediately responds to a suggestion to move the weight back and forth. But if we pause and feel the life in the whole body, we realize that we've been moving the feet, the ankles, the knees, the hips, the shoulders. So there was a symphony of sensations. We move to the right, and then to the left, and the words we use are very simple. It's shift the weight to the side, shift the weight to the side. But in those words are pointing to the feel of this cooperation from the bottoms of the feet up through the spine into the shoulders. Everything is cooperating in this river of sensation. If we add to it and turn when we get to the end, and then drift back and turn when we get to the end of the cycle, we can't, we live in a delusion that we're shifting and turning. And those words capture this, but they don't capture it. The words can't capture this feeling, this sensation, this sensation. We can't capture the shift and turn gesture that some Qigong teacher is trying to teach, or trying to engage other people with him. We can't capture it, but we can be present with it. We can be present with it here. It's like this over here. It's like this. It's like this. It's like this. Never capturing, but always present. Never capturing, always present. So that's left and right. We can step forward and open the arms, and I can say something like, calming the waters of the heart. So now we have a perception, a memory of the waters of a pond, and the feeling of the warmth of the heart spreading out in an even, smooth gesture. And we know something about those words, so we can translate them into gestures. But we can't capture it. It's gone. It started, and it's moving, and it's opening, and it's coming back. We can be present with it, but we can't capture it. It's never captured, and possible to be always present, switching sides, calming the waters of the heart means this sensation. It's pointing at this. It's like this. It's like this. It's like this. Can you feel the collaboration? One foot has 80% of your weight, then the other foot has 80%, but in between, It's like this. It's like this. The feet cooperating with the knees, with the hips, with the shoulders, the spine. The arms and the hands. They're making it really simple. Come back. Put one hand, just lay the back of your hand on your tailbone and feel that strength back there, and put the other hand on your belly and just rest. Strong back, soft belly. Then both arms relax down, reach up, and come down the center. So this is gathering chi from the heavens is the phrase. But it's like this. It's like this. It's like this. It's like this. And the minute you try to capture it, it's gone. It's impermanent. This is impermanent. There has to be a surrender in order to be present for the gesture. Surrendering, not holding on to what was, just present. One more time. And letting the arms suspend from the shoulders. We just rest for a couple breaths. Feeling the life in the standing form. Standing is like this. Feeling gratitude for all of our teachers that guided us to this training in presence in this moment. We bow. Thank you, teachers of all sorts. I've had dozens and dozens of teachers influencing what the next gesture is. The next gesture is for me to sit down. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Jim. Oop. Thank you, dear Jim. I'm trying to do all the adjustments here. Facebook and YouTube have sound. Someday I'm going to come on and just juggle 8 or 10 balls at the same time, and we'd get an actual picture of the silliness of it. All right, I think that's working. Yes. Okay. Oh. I got a text from Candle who said further about where is it here? Can I find it? Yes. The women's restoration includes non-binary and all those who identify as women. It's an inclusive group. All right. Ah, here it is. Hello, Frank. I see you there. I could give you my Swiss-German Grüezi wohl miteinander. Frank is joining us from just outside Frankfurt in Germany. And he'll be teaching next Sunday. Oh, why don't you just say hello, Frank? That's a good idea.
Hello, Robert. Nice to see you. Hello, Sangha from Portland and wherever else you are now. Nice to see you all. And Robert, you told me 10 days ago that you would like me to speak next Sunday on your behalf. And it's my honor and pleasure to do so. So next Sunday, if you like, we can meet again. And I am already preparing a theme for my talk to you, for the sharing that we can have together. And it will be about doorways to love, compassion, and freedom. And I will use parts of this wonderful book of a very dear friend of mine to ground these big words that I just mentioned. So I would be happy to see you then. Thank you very much, Robert.
Thank you, Frank. And I think more accurately, it would be that you're speaking on behalf of the Buddha and Ruth Denison. Yeah? Makes sense?
Makes sense.
That does remind me also, I should announce that I will be absent next Sunday. From Friday night through Sunday noon, I will be hosting a benefit for Brighton Bush Hot Springs. And there will be 4 or 5 other teachers of various ilks, and it's a weekend of practices and an opportunity to support that one in the world places like Brighton Bush Hot Springs, and to raise funds to replace the 42 cabins that were burned in the horrid fire last summer. Okay. So I think I want to do this. Boom, 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 boom. There. I'm going to repeat Don Nickerson's poem. Some of you came in late. I spent a couple of hours on Friday with my now very aged, he's 95, mentor, Don Nickerson. And he always, when I meet him, we always share a poem. He demands my most recent poem, and I'm always delighted to hear his. He knows he does not hear long now. The poem goes like this. Here, not here. Here, not here. And inspired by Frank Ostaseski yesterday, and by thinking of Don this morning, I'm going to share another of his poems. Written 10/10 of 10. It's called We Should Be Able to Talk. We should be able to talk about these things, but we can't or don't. Tradesmen talk to my wife now, their bodies turned away from me, once in a while a glance so I won't feel too left out. But we all know what's going on. and I am aware, but no longer offended. I guess he would have been 84 at this point. That's past, for the most part, the wrenching in my gut, my ego drawing itself up. There isn't a lot left to defend. My mind knows these things, and my heart, my time is passing. Like my father's train did at the end, grunting up summit grade, farting billows of white steam, we should be able to talk about the secret terror of incompetence or incontinence, as calmly as if we were discussing the trailings of cigar smoke, but we don't or can't. Our egos, as always, still frail. And oh, yes, we do protect others from this indignity, this profanity, this pornography. My father once said he didn't tell me the worst of his last years, though I said I wanted to hear. He said it was because he loved me. Now, just now, I understand. There is a smell to this decay that will spoil anyone's day. I met a lady doctor at the VA yesterday and fell in love with her. Persian she must be, with that dark skin, those dark, intelligent, knowing eyes. I would guess 45 years or so. She's been through a lot, her eyes say. At the end of her interview and exam, she said to me, "We'll take care of everything. We'll take care of everything." 3 times she said it at the end. We'll take care of everything. I thought I might, cry. Every part of my body wanted to let go, tired of organizing to survive. Part 2. I had 2 dreams last night, and in one dream I have been taking care of an orphan boy for a long time. He's become a happy orphan boy, but he can't stay with us forever. Yet we can't bring ourselves to cut him loose. What shall we do with him? I can't dream my way into the kingdom of heaven. Only such dreams are possible, while the rest of me waits. We scorched our tongues on a dish I fixed for dinner last night, using a recipe so worn I should have known it by heart. We scorched our tongues because at the grocery I had not remembered to buy mild picante. We washed down torn green peppers and fiery red snapper with a strange Chardonnay that was better than beer. Moving to another state, a new city and house, I asked my wife over and over again, what is our address? What is our telephone number? How the hell do I write an email on this new carrier system? Or, God help me to get the TV to turn on. I'm terrified I will freeze up when someone asks for a telephone number, but I cover well. We've just moved here and I don't have it down yet. People are kind. They say they understand, but what is it they understand? The stress of a move, or that I am old and losing my mind? But these are things we don't talk about, aren't they? The messiness of endings. I had that on Spotlight to me, but when I do that, I can't see you. So I've switched it back for me to gallery view now, and if you'd like to have it on Spotlight, if you go to view, you can put it on speaker view, and then I will fill the screen. But it's already hard enough, isolated enough, to not at least have even a glimpse at you and your little postage stamps. It's always an interesting question when, especially in a context like this, I with Zoom. There's really a lot lost in the interpersonal realm on Zoom. To be here doing this, by contrast with being in the Dharma hall, is really different. But I was thinking, so what would be a good thing at this moment in our community? What would be a good thing to talk about? I just remembered something many decades ago. I was invited to a high school class out in Gresham to talk about Buddhism. And I think I talked about impermanence. And they weren't that interested, of course. And what did they know? When I was in high school, I knew that eventually I'd get it all together and that I'd be happy and that everything would be terrific in my life. I'm still looking. No, I'm not really looking for that so much anymore. But anyway, I talked to Ruth Dennison a day or two later, and I was very proud of myself. And I said, I talked to them about this and that. And she said, oh, darling, you missed the point completely. They're high school students. You talk to them about the precepts. She was right. She was totally right. And one other thing by preamble. One time, the Mahasi Sayadaw, the great Mahasi Sayadaw, came from Burma. He wrote, I forget, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but he started something like 80 or 90 meditation centers. And he wrote over 100 books. And he was a prolific teacher. And he came to the United States one time and taught one retreat. And it was at the Mental Physics, about 10 miles or 5 miles from Ruth Dennison's place. And I was there. It was a who's who of all the Dharma teachers. All the names you know in Theravadan, in insight meditation practice, were there. And what do you suppose he talked about? For 10 nights, precepts. I'm going to mute you, Frank. I loved that laugh. But it's okay. He had heard what was happening in America, and he decided that he would talk about the precepts. So I was going to project them for you, but I've run into a glitch, and I can't. But I can certainly share them with you quite effectively, I think. Sometimes we can get caught up in audio-visual stuff. So, Freud said, among many other things, the veneer of civilization is very thin. We're seeing that at present about the veneer of democracy is very thin. People can believe anything. More than 60% of Republicans believe that the election was stolen by Joe Biden. So we can believe anything. So how we speak to each other and how we behave to each other, toward each other, is of utmost importance. And it's not new, of course. It's way back in the time of the Buddha who put forward the precepts. And there's the 5 precepts for the ordinary householder like us. There's the 8 precepts if we want to be a little more focused and restrained. And the Theravadan monks have 228 major precepts. So that every action is more conscious, I guess is the word. The precepts are different from the commandments that I grew up with in some very profound ways. I like to think of the precepts more as natural law. There's a demonstration I like to do with this. See these little matches? This container of matches? What will happen if I open my fingers? What about this time? What do you think? Let's have a show of thumbs. Will it hover here or will it drop? A drop would be pointing down. Ooh, disapproval. All right, let's see what happens. It dropped. I'll do it once more. What do you think? Thumbs up, down? Cricket, you're really certain you got 2 thumbs down. Oh, James. All right, here we go. You lost, James. I'm glad you didn't bet a lot on it. That's a natural law. This has a little bit of mass. The Earth has a great deal of mass. And for some reason that I don't think the physicists even yet understand, they attract each other. Newton, force equals mass times acceleration. He figured that out and the Industrial Revolution came along. So, we can think about the precepts not as something that was given to us by a deity, but as natural laws. And then as we go through our lives and experiment with the precepts, which we do, we can validate them or not. So I think I'll just go through them all. And there's line A and then there's line B. Line A is the pretty traditional Western translation of the precepts. Line B is one that I created 25 years ago, which is the positive aspiration. So I undertake the training of the heart to not kill living beings. I aspire to become kind and of service to all beings. Positive statement. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from taking that which is not freely given. I aspire to become generous to all beings. You get to see the first one is the restraint and the second one is the aspiration. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from sexual acts that cause harm. I aspire to use libido and the great creative energies to bring love and beauty into the world. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from false and harmful speech. I aspire to use speech to bring connection, love, and beauty into the world. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from the use of intoxicants of all kinds that confuse and blur the mind. I aspire to cultivate mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion, and to be awake. I've heard talks on this topic from many different teachers. I always think of Ajahn Sumedho as I begin. When he said at a retreat that I was on with him a long time ago, I undertake the training of the heart, or the rule of training, to not kill. And he said, what if we didn't, we can create problems if we make these too broad. So What if we simply took it as, I undertake the rule of training to refrain from killing human beings? And then he laughed and said, well, you're probably safe. You probably don't need to worry about that one here on retreat at Cloud Mountain. And then he went on to, what about that mosquito that lands on your arm? And he finally said, and how different would the world be if we simply all agreed to not kill each other? Be totally different. Our foreign policy would have to be very different. So, I've discovered that I can't go through my life without killing. There is on my website, on robertbeatty.com, there's an article I wrote a long time ago. It's called Killing Ratty. It's in my book, actually. Thank you for the plug, Frank. The book is also out. It's available on Audible now, which makes it very nice for some people who like that approach. My daughter, we discovered we had rats in our house. And the short story goes like this. We discovered we had rats in the house, and I decided we would live with them because why not? They're just rats. And then one ran across my daughter's foot in her bedroom downstairs. And then I decided, well, I'll get a live trap and we'll trap this rat. Well, the rat was not interested in the live trap at all. We knew it came into the kitchen because dog food disappeared. And so in the end, I bought a rat zapper, which is if you ever need to do this, it's a very humane way to kill rats. You put in batteries and the rat gets electrocuted and dies. So I set the rat zapper and then I waited and nothing happened and nothing happened. And then the red light was flashing and then I found Ratty inside. And I sat and I contemplated on Ratty's body and I was amazed. Rats are not that different from the rats you buy for your kids when they're little. And they're beautiful in their own way. And so I sat with Ratty and I chanted and I buried him carefully and so on. And then I thought, well, there might be one more. And in the end, there were 7. And I discovered that by the end of killing the 7th one, I was much more cavalier. They didn't get a nice burial. They got thrown in the trash by the end. So I could learn how to kill with less and less challenge, which is, of course, what we do to the young people that we induct into the military. We dehumanize the other and we teach them how to kill. When we now do it, it looks like video games. So, the question for me is, and I share with you, is how do I minimize the harm that I do in this lifetime? How do I minimize the killing that I'm involved in? The positive statement, or if I am involved in killing, how conscious can I be of it? Will I be of it? Because to be conscious of it means it's a different act. It's harder to do when you're conscious of it. I aspire to become kind and of service to all beings. Well, there's the whole world of social action and taking care of each other when we're sick and so on. The second precept. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from taking that which is not freely given. That's a diabolically written truth. Theft was really not part of my childhood. I was well trained. There's a lovely story in my family. We told it the other day again. My father stole a penknife in his youth, and his father caught him with it. And he asked him where he got it because he didn't have any money. And he had to confess. And so his father took him back to the store, and he had to give it back and apologize. His father then left the store with him and said, all right, you need a knife. Let's get you a real knife, not a toy. And he took him to the hardware and bought him a really good knife and taught him how to sharpen it. My grandpa taught me how to sharpen knives too. My son Luke, I went out and I raised pennies for the Red Cross at a certain point. I think I got 6 or 8 pennies from the neighbors in the tenement area we lived in Montreal. This was discovered, and I had to go back to the neighbors to tell them that I really wasn't and that I had lied to them. Very strong. But then in graduate school, in my 20s, York University, I stole a salad. Dun, 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 dun. And it was a big deal. And several years later, I was on retreat in Bodh Gaya in India, and I went through hell. Because, as Ruth Denison puts it, darling, once you have the Dharma, you can no longer get away with yourself. And so there I was, sitting in my little hut in Bodh Gaya, anguished over this stupid salad. But it wasn't just the salad. It was that there was a knot in my heart, sort of. So a couple of years later, when I was back in Toronto, I went and paid for the salad, which was relieving to me and pretty weird for the manager of the cafeteria. I have another story about this kind of thing. My teacher Munindra came to visit us in California, and he wore it's called a dhoti, like Gandhi. It's about 10 or 12 meters of very thin white cotton, and we used to joke he looked like an ice cream salesman. But anyway, he dressed like that. And one day I washed his dhoti for him, and I put it out in a line. It was hard. It was so long. I washed it up completely and then put it out, and then a little bird pooped on it. I mean, a little tiny poop appeared on it, like tiny. And I said, oh, let me go get a sponge and I'll wash that off. And he said, no. And then he said, we must wash the whole thing. It's like a person's moral and ethical behavior. The smallest infraction affects everything. So I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from taking that which is not freely given. If we take that, and if we take it inside, it changes our life. Another thing I think of whenever I talk about this is I really like the pens at my doctor's office. And they're there, and they buy them. I know why. They're there because they're advertising, and they're in a jar, and you're free to take them. I always not when I go as often as I do now sometimes, but I like to walk out of there with a pen that I can then give away and talk about the place that I go and so on. But I always ask. Same with the candy at the bank. Can I have one of these? It feels so clean. So clean. And there's not a misunderstanding. So just think about that in your own life. Are there ways that you kind of slide by on some things? What's reported or not reported in taxes or so on. Then there's the positive side of that one, which is, checking the time, I aspire to become generous to all beings. One thing that I have aspired to, and I've succeeded, I think I have. When I die, my children will say to people, my dad was really generous. I want that to be my legacy, really, part of my legacy. And aside from that, it is so much fun to give. One of my common practices is when I go grocery shopping and there's someone sitting outside, I'll go and talk to them and ask them what they need, and then I'll do a little shopping for them. I have so much I can certainly share with somebody. Actually, I got a little in trouble with Jennifer the other day. She saves money for our eventual vacation. She saves quarters. And I asked if I could get some quarters to do the car wash, and she said, okay. And a little grudgingly, but okay. And then I was at the grocery store, and there was a family, a Hispanic family, with 2 kids and a baby and the 2 adults. And I did a number on the coin. I didn't have any cash, but I had cash in coins. And I came home and announced that. And she loves it that I practice generosity. But there was a little ownership of the quarters that I lost track of. So being generous. Now, among the ways to be generous, the first and most important way to be generous is to ourselves. And I would say that's to give yourself your hour or 2 a day of meditation time, your self-care time. Be generous. It'll change your life, and it'll change the lives of everyone around you. The third precept. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from sexual acts which cause harm. Why would we need a precept about sexuality? Because it's so stunningly primitive. Mother Nature, our genetics, is really interested in one thing, which is the procreation and the survival of the species. And we do really crazy things, violent, thoughtless things around sexuality, us humans. We go a little mad around sexuality. So there's this precept. It's like a cognitive notion, an intention. I intend to be conscious about how I act, how I think, how I behave around sexuality, with the intention of not hurting anybody. It's big. Has the whole realm of consent in it. And I know I lived through the 70s. I think I lived through it. And there were some times when I was sexual when I didn't want to be. It was not good. It was harmful to me. And sometimes I think harmful to another person. So to be conscious about it, is this really what we want to do? Is everybody aboard in this? Is anybody's responsibility to other relationships being trampled on here? I aspired to be conscious of and to use sexuality to bring love and beauty into the world, to use libido in general. So, as with the other precepts, we're using restraint, and we're also bringing creativity to use this, to make use of this amazing energy that's there. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from speech which causes harm. Boy, I was thinking of this talk this morning, and I did a little bit of perusing of the news. The amount of lying that is normative now. Maybe it always has been. But, the big lie about the election, or There's a lie out there right now that Kamala Harris wrote a book that is being given to all the children's book that is being given to all the children that come into the country illegally. And it has not one shred of truth to it. And it's being pushed all over the place. With great harm. It's absurd. So, bringing it to ourselves, lying, slander, here's a big one, gossip, talking about people when they're not around, and exaggeration, tale telling, passing on information that we think that we don't know to be true. Gossip, slander. I know I've been doing this teaching thing for a long time, and I've talked with a lot of people. And I've known people who actually wound up quitting jobs because they couldn't be in the office and not be involved in a gossip network. They were just ostracized if they wouldn't gossip. And there's subtleties to it too. Sometimes when we're with another person, we talk about a third person, and one of the reasons we do that is we titrate our intimacy, and we don't have to talk about what's going on between us if we're talking about the other person. It's one of the reasons so many marriages end when the kids leave, that all of a sudden there's these two strangers who haven't talked with each other about themselves in a decade or two, and suddenly they're sitting across from the table from each other, gulp. So that's something, if lying is of interest to you, and I recommend, I think it ought to be because it's pretty interesting. If you were to Google, what's his name? Harris. What's his name? He does the spiritual writing. Tom Harris? No.
Dan Harris.
Dan Harris, thank you. Dan Harris. If you Google Dan Harris lying, there's a little 40-page on the computer treatise that he wrote that's very fascinating. It really changed my life reading it. The little white lie business that really we don't need to do. Dan Harris.
Sam Harris.
It's Sam. Okay, there is a Dan too. It's the Sam.
Yeah, but
right.
He has a website also for meditation.
Great.
Yeah.
Sam, lying. Oh, and gossip. There's an experiment. This I heard from Joseph Goldstein probably 40 years ago. If you want to see what life is like without gossip, don't do it for a week. Don't talk with anyone about someone else for a week. And one of the reasons, one of the ways that gossip destroys relationship is this. Let's say I am with Flunk, and we're having a wonderful conversation, and I say some really derogatory thing about Jim Dalton. The next time I'm with Jim Dalton, I can't be honest with him. Because if I were, I'd have to say, I was talking to Frank the other day, and I said this and this and this about you. But if I can't do that, then we're stuck. And lastly, I want to be sure, you got a few minutes. A very interesting precept. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from the use of intoxicants that dull and confuse the mind. Now, there's some obvious ones, right? The various substances. There's also these. Excuse me, I have to check my mail while I just picked up my phone. I now have to check my mail and my text and see if anything exciting. No, I don't have to do that. I can restrain myself with difficulty. So we can ask ourselves, what's with my use of intoxicants? One of the things I always think of when I reflect on this in any way or think about it is, here in Oregon, grocery stores sell wine and beer. There's always a liquor store close by. Wine and beer and liquor consumption in Oregon are up 100% over what they were before COVID. 100%. Why? Because we humans anesthetize ourselves. When it gets too painful, we anesthetize ourselves. The marijuana trade is up 70% over pre-COVID. So we can ask ourselves, what is it that I do that results in my not being conscious? Things that I've worked with over the years are, leaving the radio on NPR. So whenever I get in my car, I don't have to pay attention to driving or to feel what's going on. Or staying on the phone or whatever other media, or leaving the TV on or something. How do I distract from simply just being with what is? And I want to remember to say this. I hope you can hear in this isn't you're a bad person because you do this. It would be more you're a normal person, which is why the precepts have been here with us for 2,600 years. And before that, and every single spiritual tradition has some, that's not totally true. But most of them have a moral and ethical code because we need them in order to get along with each other. And why would we follow the precepts? Well, on the one level, what we train kids is, you'll get in trouble if you don't. You go to jail if you don't. If you do it too broad, too grandly. But there's a much more important and profound reason for meditators, which is, as happened for me when I stole that salad. I say it humorously, but it was agonizing to be there in India and be tortured by this theft. Because like Manindra's dhoti, that little blotch on the moral and ethical heart was really difficult. The resolution to it was ultimately I went and confessed to my teacher, and I took my formal monk precepts again that I decided I will once, and I said I will go back and pay for it when I get a chance. So the precepts protect the great protectors. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from killing other beings. I aspire to become kind and of service to all beings. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from taking that which is not freely given. I aspire to become a being of great generosity. To never let a day pass where I don't find some way to be generous. Don't forget to start with yourself. Many of us have been conditioned we'll never get any love unless we're giving everything away all the time, and so it must begin with oneself. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from sexual acts which cause harm. I aspire to use sexuality and the energy of libido to bring love and beauty into the world. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from speech which causes harm. I intend to use speech to create connection and beauty. And, not to forget this, there is a profound vocabulary and training of skillful speech, which is Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. the Buddha didn't get to teach everything. And so Marshall Rosenberg came along and said, here's a way you can talk, you can speak and think that will be very compassionate. And lastly, I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from the use of substances and activities that dull the mind, that are intoxicating. And I aspire to cultivate mindfulness, compassion, wisdom, equanimity, and to be of great service in the world. So we have just maybe 4 or 5 minutes if anyone has any question or comment you'd like to share. If you do,
Actually,
just
Robert,
unmute yourself. Oh, there we go, someone.
I do have something I would like to share. I'm sitting here with a hefty chunk of me thinking that I'm the reason that you decided to talk about the precepts today.
How did you know?
I came into this session today wanting to make an apology, and I will do it tomorrow too, because I know the groups that come Sunday and during the week are different. Last Wednesday, the social justice group had a meeting to talk about a letter that PIMC had gotten. We don't need to go into those details, but I wanted to attend the meeting. It was very difficult for me to do so. I had huge swarms of feelings and issues coming up that I didn't understand. And I had asked my wife to support me and to help orient me for reality check and all of that. And I was talking to her in more specific detail about the feelings that were coming up just as the Zoom session came online. And it happened to be the first Zoom session in my experience where I came online unmuted. And I was heard to say something disparaging about one of the people involved in the meeting. And
whoa, I was there. How come I didn't hear that?
Well, I'm relieved to hear that you didn't hear it. I had gone a day or two with the hope that it hadn't been heard, and to apologize for something that hadn't been heard would just be harmful. And I'm pretty sure it was heard, at least by some. Perhaps they didn't know.
Joan is shaking her head no.
Okay, well, in any event, to anyone who may have been there who heard it, I am mortified, because in the statement that I made, I was describing me and not the person that I was referring to. I don't even want to identify the person, because I've sent an email apologizing to them. And I haven't heard back, and I don't want to expand the harm. But to those who were there, these people very carefully, very attentively worked to create what I've come to call a sacred space. And to the extent anyone heard it, I clearly soiled that sacred space. And I apologize to anyone who heard it. It was not intended for the substance by any means. I have great respect for the people who were involved. And I've been living in anguished mortification that anyone who heard it may have taken it at face value. As I say, I have apologized to this person. I may or may not hear back, but I am really sorry for I certainly learned never to take Zoom for granted when it comes online. But aside from that, and it was a huge learning experience for me, if that matters. But in any event, that's what I wanted to say. And your precepts conversation, is like, Dave.
Yeah, I've been meaning to tell you, David. I no, truth be told, and how wonderful. One thing I forgot in the precept talk was there are mental factors, right? There's mindfulness, curiosity, energy, joy. There's the 5 hindrances. There's all these things that can be in the mind. There's 2 that are known as the great protectors. One is moral shame, and the other is moral dread. And now you've gone off the deep end into toxic shame. That's not what I'm talking about. But there's a little piece of it which is moral shame, and how wonderful that works so well in you. And drop the extra stuff, because when we when we do something that is in violation of the precepts, we know it. And we know it. We can do it unconsciously, but if we know it, then there's this sense of, oh dear, I didn't mean to do that. That was bad. I did harm with that. But it's not guilt and shame. It's just the realization that it's a bad feeling. And then there's the second moral protector, which is moral dread, which is the next time you're about to do something similar. It's very it's very helpful. It's, wait a minute, I did that before and I felt bad after that. And so it restrains us. So I would encourage you to flush the excessive shame and just learn the lesson. There it is.
My challenge at the moment is knowing the difference.
Knowing what?
Knowing the difference.
Yeah.
That's what I'm...
Well, if it's excessive, it's excessive. I'm so glad that I probably shouldn't say this, but I was so relieved when you said that you sent an email to the person, because then I realized, oh, it wasn't me.
Check your spam folder, Robert.
Oh shit.
No, it wasn't you.
Robert?
Frank?
Yes.
No?
This is Kai.
Kai, where are you?
Well, here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, good. I think you must be German too, huh? I recognize the voice.
Hi, Frank. I want to speak to your talk on the second precept, non-stealing, or don't take that which is not freely given.
Uh-huh.
So I liked how you spoke about your experience with your salad and that you went back, and also the stain on the dhoti, the bird pooped on the dhoti,
Yeah.
that walked the whole dhoti. But what would you say to people who had a past, who was not just a salad? So it could feel like, well, I can't get my dhoti ever clean ever again. Because I can't bring back all those salads. I can't go around. So what would you say to someone who, and doesn't, well, it could be that it doesn't mean that I have now, if it is me, a misery life and feel all dread and bad. So I could feel even bad that I don't feel bad in that
right.
amount. So
got it.
Speak a little bit about that.
I will.
I
will. The person who did the unskillful acts in the past does not exist. It's over. And so, does one learn from, like I did with the salad, which is a very small example, but I learned, and I suffered because of it. And but mostly, what happened was it clarified the what's the word, the inefficiency or the ineffectiveness of taking that which is not freely given. And so the purpose of the moral shame is to inoculate us against future activity of the same kind. And to hold oneself in, it's like, you're a bad person, you did this in the past. Look at the really awful things you did in the past. That's really identifying with guilt and shame. And I remember that, I forget who it was. It may be Joseph, one of my colleagues of my age-ish, was going through a really hard time with something like this. And their teacher told them, okay, start reflecting on your goodness, because you're focusing only on one side of your being. And reflect upon all the acts of generosity that you've done, and also the remorse for having done what we did, and then realize that this is now, what karmic seeds do I plant now? That making sense?
Yeah, thank you so much.
My first response was have mercy on yourself, or whoever this friend is. For us to have mercy on ourselves, because there was a person in my life once there was a person in my life who I called my father, who didn't he didn't say much, but one thing he said at a very poignant moment was, "We do the best we are." And the things that we did in the past that were unskillful arose because of our ignorance. And so we did unskillful things. And it would be unskillful in the present moment to be beating ourselves up for something that's over. So that's where the practice of forgiveness comes in. Which is, to the best of my ability in this moment, I forgive myself for that. And now how shall I be present and alive and virtuous in my life now and from now forward? But the key, I think, is recognizing that it's really over. In some circumstances, people around us can't realize that it's over, even if we're no longer doing anything like that. And that's just the karmic blowback of the activities. We can't control that.
There's another story. 2 days ago, I was in a shop. It was a second-hand shop. And I saw a man secretly taking a pair of children's shoes. And my feeling of the second precept was, in that case, wavering. It's like, yeah, I don't know if I didn't set anything to the shop, and I wasn't even seeing it as stealing in a way. So that was also an interesting experience. It came to mind when you talked about it. Yeah, what do I see in this? Because I could surely see that it was not a person of wealth or money. So it's like a mother stealing food in a grocery superstore, a Walmart who is so impersonal, so rich, so who I feel like Walmart maybe steals from us or from the planet. It's hard to say. So I get in, there's a lot of, I go in several concepts. I know it's about basically ourselves. And how we go with the stealing, what it does to our inner. But there's just the things to be. I don't want to go further, so just
I need to end also. But let me just say one thing. I had a thought pop up as you described it. You could wait until the person was well out of the store with the shoes, and then go up to the clerk and then say, you know, a little while ago I saw someone take a pair of baby shoes. I want to pay for them.
Oh wow, yeah.
You make a gift to the child of the shoes.
Or I can even donate to the store, because it's actually a kind of a store who doesn't sell for profit. It's a kind of... Yeah, you can. But then you get yourself involved in it in a very positive way. Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was worth asking you just to get that answer. Thank you so much.
Well, friends, I must end. We could go on for a long time, I'm sure. That'd be fun. So, a few days ago, it was another long story, but I'd like to sing our song on the way out, but not the May All Beings Be Happy, but the original, Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam. May all beings receive all blessings. It gets confusing. Happy, what do we mean by happy? May all beings receive all blessings. May all beings discover their path to freedom. May all beings encounter the Dharma in ways that they can really metabolize, and that it'll make a difference to them. So the words are Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. It's from the Mangala Sutta. You ready? We'll do it 3 times. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam, and then Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu 3 times. Ruth always ended things this way, and she was remarkably capable of starting and ending off key. So we don't need to feel at all anxious about how harmonious we are. We just are intoning this beautiful wish. May all beings receive all blessings. Ready? Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. And unmute yourself if you feel like it. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu. That was really nice, wasn't it? All right, dear friends, have a lovely rest of Sunday.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, Robert.
You be nice to yourself, David.
See you next week, Frank.
Yes.
Have a great week, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye,
so
Sangha.
much.
Thanks, Robert.
You're the best, Robert.
Bye-bye.
It's very interesting watching people vanish, isn't it?
Yes. Changing all the time, impermanence.
Amen. Take care, dear Frank. Goodbye,
Yeah.
Amy
Goodbye.
and Susan and Michael and
Bye-bye.
Anna. You ready for the big jump? Here we go.
Oh, boom.
Well, dear friends on Facebook and YouTube, sorry for that lapse in the sound in the middle. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam.